Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom podcast. This is Dorit Palvanov, your host. For those of you who are listening live, I wanted to remind everybody about the webinar that I'm hosting tomorrow, August 22nd. At 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is going to be all about school lunches and how to pack them and how to make it easier and how to help our kids eat healthier. And I'm also going to give a massive gift to people who attend live. So I highly encourage you to come and learn together with me and other moms. Over 50 moms registered to this webinar, and I'm super excited to meet all of you live tomorrow. So the link for registration will be below this in the show notes and also on my website. So you can go to healthbeginswithmom.com/EP-11 and you will find a link to the registration page there. Today I am going to interview someone very interesting. Her name is Wendy Rohin. She's a pediatric physical therapist. She's specializing in prematurity and infant development. And she's been doing that for over 10 years. She's the one-woman show behind the blog everythingbabies.org. She has recently started offering online services for parents and babies to get help without leaving their living room. In addition to working with over 150 babies in her career, she's also a full-time working mom of an NICU graduate who struggled with severe reflux for the first year, so she gets it. She can definitely relate to the struggles during the first year and really wants parents to know and learn and have access to someone who is trained, but more than that, someone who has hands-on experience. So today we are talking about tummy time and why is tummy time so crucial for babies? Why is it so important for their mental, emotional, physical development? I'm super excited for you to meet Wendy and learn together with me. So without further ado, here's Wendy. Hi, Wendy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
This is so exciting. Today we're talking about time and the importance of putting our babies on their tummy. And before we get into that exciting topic, I want to allow you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Okay. I am Wendy Rohin. I'm a pediatric physical therapist. I live in Boise, Idaho. I have specialized in working with preemies and infant development for the last 10 years. But we see all kids of all ages for all different reasons. So I've been in a private practice for 5 years, which has been great. It's given us a lot of time to get to know our babies and get to know our kids and be able to help everybody. But people are dependent on a referral from their doctor to come see us. So that's why I got online and started reaching out to parents online to be able to help them in their own living room without having to go through a doctor or get a referral or try to find somebody to help them when a lot of times they don't know what kind of help they need. So here I am.
Awesome. So you do pediatric therapy. Is it in Canada we call it physiotherapy? Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And you call yourself the baby expert?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Why is it?
Why does this physical therapist think she's an expert on babies?
Right.
I say that because yes, I'm a physical therapist, and yes, I see kids of all ages. The path I chose to take within my profession has given me tons and tons of education, expertise, and knowledge to work with babies. And the best part about that is the more babies I get, the more moms I get, and the more dads I get who are going to teach me what they're experiencing during this first year, for example. So I've just learned that treating the whole parent, treating the whole family, not just the baby's reflux, but what else is going on? What are obstacles? What else is scaring us or worrying us or getting in the way of what we want? I've been able to really enhance my knowledge about what I call everything babies. I know I don't know everything that there is to know, but if I can't help you with what I do know, it's very important to me that one, I learn the information and I find somebody who's a better resource for you. So I've worked with babies since I was old enough to babysit. Since I've been in the field of pediatric physical therapy, I've worked with over 200 babies. So between what I learned from my patients, what I learned from my courses, and what I learned by reaching out and getting more information, I think I've gotten to the expert level as far as being able to help parents with their babies. So
and I think the best experience of all is actually being a mom and really knowing what it is that parents are experiencing, right?
absolutely. My daughter's 7 now, and so I had done pediatrics for 3 years before she was born, and I knew a lot. I knew I was not an expert. I knew enough to help people, help safely, right? But watching her develop and going through what all these moms are going through was such a good learning experience for me. And, it made me realize how many things are normal, that they're just odd and different, but all typically developing babies do these different things, and we don't have to panic and worry about everything. But I also realized, my daughter went through her developmental stages really beautifully without intervention from me. I tried really hard not to do any therapy on her. And she just reminded me what I already knew, that there is a way that a baby typically develops, and there is a path and sort of like a neurological chain of events that babies go through. But she really helped me understand, and I think it gives you more credibility with your families. They want to know that you get it, and I get it. I get reflux. I get she was healthy, but we spent a little bit of time in the NICU. I get the overwhelm of being in the NICU. I get trying to go back to work, even working now full time, and still wanting to spend time with my daughter. I get all of these stresses and strains that moms are experiencing.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the most common reasons parents come to you.
When we talk about babies, the most common things that I see generally are torticollis and plagiocephaly, which is having a flat head or a tight neck that pulls their head in a certain direction. A lot of that is related to reflux. So a significant amount of my patients have reflux, but that's not necessarily why they're referred to me. I also do infant feeding, whether it's breast or bottle. We work with the babies on their oral motor structures. If they have tight cheeks, tongue ties, lip ties, if they have too floppy of cheeks and they don't have enough strength in their mouth, what they're doing with their tongue, is it going in the right direction and shaping the correct way. Teaching parents how to pace if they are not doing it, if the baby can't maintain a good suck, swallow, breathe rhythm. We do a lot of that. A lot of preemies, because they're preemies, they have some difficulties with falling into the good pattern of development. So anything that might be categorized as a developmental delay or tight muscles or floppy muscles, we see babies for those reasons too. That's the majority for babies. Yeah.
I want to ask, you mentioned reflux a few times. Can you just elaborate a little bit about that? What does it mean?
Yeah, reflux is baby spit up.
Mm.
Every baby has baby spit up that can be normal. Reflux disease, gastroesophageal reflux disease, or GERD, when it's diagnosed as a disease, it means it's the acid in the stomach is burning in the esophagus and it's causing inflammation and erosion in the esophagus. Those
Mm.
babies, their spit up hurts, and
Mm.
eating hurts because as soon as the food goes down and the body wants to reject it, the food starts coming back up. So these babies are really fussy. They're really irritable. They act hungry but don't want to eat very much. They don't
Mm.
like tummy time. They're often tight and archy, and they'll pull their head back and to the right to get their esophagus as far away from the stomach as possible so that they can be more
Mm.
comfortable. So that's and so that plays into torticollis, plagiocephaly, tight muscles, etc.
So is that what your daughter had?
She did have reflux. She had horrible reflux, and I
Wow.
didn't know then as much as I know now. So we spent 11 miserable weeks dealing with this poor child that was a spirited child, or you're a new mom, babies cry, or all those other things that you're told when you have a particularly fussy baby. And at 11 weeks, I just kept poking the brains of my more experienced colleagues, and they're like, it sounds like reflux. So we finally pushed hard enough to get treatment,
Mm.
and she was a different baby. Within 2 days, it was a whole different story. So unfortunately, it had messed up her sleep. So even though we got treatment for the reflux, her sleep was still very, very disturbed until she was about a year old.
So so the treatment was it done through physiotherapy or was it done with
I was referring to medication. So
mm.
to minimize how much acid comes up into the esophagus, they
Mhm.
use acid blockers, basically, that Nexium, uh, Zantac are pretty common now. Back in the day, we were prescribed Prevacid, and it worked very well. Um, there's pros and cons of all medications. So the pediatricians have been trying to figure out exactly what's most effective with the least side effects. So, but that's typically the best treatment, is because otherwise the esophagus just never heals, and then later on they just don't want to eat at all. They don't want to try new foods, anything that bothers their throat. They're just done with it.
Okay.
So it can
We're
become a big problem.
yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine. Oh my gosh, I have so much compassion for because it sounds
it's
like
rough.
it's so rough. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't even
it
imagine
is.
going through this. All right, so I mean, like, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
It's so great to have somebody who, first of all, can help as an expert, but also somebody who has been through, the real,
Yeah,
the real life and in the
yeah.
trenches with all of us.
Right,
Okay,
right.
so
We're all trying to figure it out.
yeah,
Every baby is
sure.
different. They're always going to throw us for a loop. So no
Right.
matter how much I know, she's still going to throw me off and challenge
Yeah.
me.
Oh gosh. Um, so today we're talking about tummy time.
Yes, we
My
are.
baby is already 12 months old, but I can tell you that
Oh,
all three of my kids, they resisted tummy time. But I kept hearing from the doctor, tummy time, and my midwife also,
yeah,
as much as possible. We did it. We tried to do as much of it, but we didn't really understand why
right,
it's so important. So can
right.
you tell us why is it so important for babies, and why do they hate it so much?
um, the importance is uh, a side effect of the Back to Sleep campaign. So in order to minimize the risk of babies dying of SIDS, the researchers found that if babies slept on their backs, they are much, much less likely to die of SIDS. So back in the 90s, the National Health Institute said, okay, we're going to put out this big campaign to save these babies, and we're going to call it Back to Sleep, Tummy to Play. But it drew some flags, and they said, well, that's going to be really confusing for the parents, so let's just simplify it because it's more important that they live, which I completely agree with. So they said, we're just going to say Back to Sleep. So what happened, and this was in the early to mid 90s, and still today, what happened was parents became scared of tummy time. And so we took babies who developmentally, naturally are born in the fetal position and are designed to sleep on their bellies. We took that normal part of their first days and months of their life and we flipped them over on their backs and we said, nope, you're going to do it this way. So I want to be clear, you must have your baby sleep on their back. No excuses, no exceptions, unless your specialist gives you some other instructions. Nobody else's doctor can tell you, no other mother can tell you. Your doctor is the one that is the only one that's allowed to give you a different recommendation. And I'm very passionate about this. I know people who have lost their babies to SIDS, and I do not want you or anybody else I know to be that parent. But what we're missing is a whole bunch of tummy time. So babies sleep, 17, 18 hours a day at newborns at birth. They used to be on their tummies for 17 to 18 hours a day minimum. Plus, just newborn babies just chill. They just chill in the fetal position. So you put them on their bellies, that's where they want to be. So we need to make up for a lot of missing tummy time. And I want parents to think of tummy time as brain development time. Tummy time equals learning time, okay? Because like I said, we're wired to do things in a particular order, and it's based on the foundation of tummy time. We start out on our tummies. So when we take that away and we don't work on emphasizing it during the day, babies kind of take a different path. And there's a lot of you out there that can say, my kids are totally fine, they never did tummy time and they're fine. Maybe that's true, but we have research and we have evidence and we see it every day in the clinic. What can happen if a baby doesn't get the tummy time they need from the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
So
how soon should the newborn baby start tummy time?
Day one. Like I said, they're born in the position to be in tummy time. All those cute, professional photographs of babies, they're all on their tummies, right? That's how we're designed. So there's no reason to fear tummy time. Tummy time is not the problem. It was bedding and other people and blankets and pillows and all these things while a baby is on their tummy that has led to SIDS. And if they're asleep, they don't realize if they're blocking their airway. So it's not tummy time that's causing SIDS. It's just that they are less susceptible to having airway blockage if they're on their backs. So absolutely first day. It's never too late to start if you didn't start on the first day. But I really drive home to my families, it has to happen and it's going to happen. I know it sounds crazy, your baby's just screamed and cried, and trust me, I have yet a baby patient leave my practice without becoming a good tummy time baby. So I get it, I understand. It only takes 4 days. I don't know where this research came from. It only takes 4 days for a baby to become adverse to tummy time, which means if you go 4 days without doing any tummy time, it will feel strange and unusual and foreign to them, and it will feel uncomfortable. So that's why the sooner the better. That's why the more often the better. And just over time, if they're resistant to it, over time they'll start to realize, oh yeah, this is what I was born to do, and they'll get used to it. But it's a process. I understand the process. It's tricky.
And how about premature babies? What do you advise as far as tummy time?
Premature babies especially, from day one, they're trying to do it as much as they can in the NICUs because they understand the importance of it. But a lot of times preemies are exposed to all these things in the environment that they wouldn't have been exposed to if they were still in mommy's bellies. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important that they be able to start with their foundational milestones as soon as possible to have the best outcome. It's the same as typically developing kids, but they are more likely to have more complications if they're not getting their tummy time.
Yeah, and I love it. You've provided to our audience this beautiful checklist, the gross motor milestone checklist, which we're going to mention a little bit later. And I think it's great to have that as a reference.
Yeah.
So in my research about tummy time, I was surprised to discover that tummy time is related to even classroom learning, including reading, memory, and handwriting. Can you talk a little bit about that? How is this correlation done?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it earlier about how tummy time is learning time. The things that our bodies learn in the gross motor development in the first year is sort of like the foundation of a house, or you could think of like children's play blocks, building a pyramid of play blocks. And gross motor, which is the milestones that we always talk about when babies are growing and developing. That gross motor piece is the foundation, the solid bottom layer of blocks, or the foundation of a home, and every single skill builds on top of that. So after it's gross motor, big body movements, coordinating, knowing where you are in space, using your back and your tummy muscles to learn how to move against gravity. That builds into using your hands more specifically for fine motor things. So we're talking down the road, we're talking handwriting, self-feeding. Around the time that a baby starts walking, they're not so focused on the walking part, or the gross motor part, they're getting that under control. Then they're ready to explore their language, they're ready to access their environment and learn from their environment. Mm-hmm. And so another phrase we use is movement is learning, or learning is movement. There's tons and tons of studies about everything your body does physically is teaching your brain pathways and information to store for later and to add on top of that. So one big example is crawling. You'll hear that, 25% of babies just skip crawling and they're totally fine. No, there's actual research that shows what a baby does when they're crawling absolutely impacts how well they pick up on handwriting, reading, memory, speech, and cognitive skills, because what we're doing with our bodies is being mimicked or driven by these patterns in our brains. And one concept for optimal learning is crossing midline. So we all know that we have two sides of the brain and they talk to each other and information goes back and forth and back and forth. You need to have that access and those pathways established so that you can start plugging information in there and sending the information where it needs to go to learn. So, you learn something new, you need to store it in your brain so you don't have to relearn it every time, you don't start over every day. So what they're doing when they're crawling is their bodies are moving from one side to the other in an alternating pattern. And so that's organizing the brain. But even just the weight of the weight bearing on their hands during crawling, shifting from one side of the hand to the other side of the hand, teaches them how to hold a pencil and then be able to move it. So they've got to be stable on one side and move on the other side. So there's a direct link from how they learn what they're doing with their hands and tummy time to handwriting. So does that help? Can you see how those things kind of build on top of each other?
Yeah, and
it's really fascinating.
I can tell you a personal story. I never thought of that. But my mom told me that I never crawled before. Like, I never crawled when I was a baby. I started walking when I was 10 months old. And now I understand that what they've done is they were so anxious about me starting to walk. They would always prop me to walk. And now in my adult life, I constantly have issues with my wrists. Like, I constantly have carpal tunnel syndrome on both my hands. I'm constantly under chiropractic therapy. I do osteopathy also. I do yoga because I just cannot. My hands are not strong enough. And now I'm sort of now I'm picking up on the correlation between the fact, and I can't even do push-ups. Like, I can't, because I feel like my muscles in my hands are so weak. So it's all of this time that, from us being babies, crawling and leaning on our hands, they're helping to strengthen these muscles.
Yes. Yeah.
So now I'm sort of.
Yeah. And even, exactly what you were saying, you're having problems with your hands, but it's coming from your shoulders.
Yeah.
You don't have stability in your shoulders, so that everything you do is really affecting your hands. So that's the biggest piece. Kids that have poor handwriting, kids that are not coordinating typical play activities like jumping jacks, for example, or skipping, we put them back on their hands and knees because they need the shoulder stability and the shoulder input and weight bearing through their shoulders before they can do all those fancy things with their hands. So it's really interesting. I would love to do a study of babies that aren't getting enough tummy time and what happens long term. I mean, we've only been doing this for 20 years where we've been having this tummy
Mm.
time thing, and nobody's really realized that people aren't doing tummy time. Like our pediatricians are shocked when I say, you guys have to tell them when you meet them, it's okay to do tummy time. And when they come to the 2-month appointment, you need to be doing tummy time. And
Mm.
by the 4-month appointment, if you're not doing any tummy time, you absolutely need to be in a PT or an OT's office, a
Mm.
therapist's office, a physio. So yeah, it's really interesting that you've experienced that. And I could say, yeah, it probably has something to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we've talked a little bit about this checklist that you've created, the
Yes.
gross motor milestones, and I think it's a great resource. But what should parents do when their child is not following the milestones? Like, what should they do if they're seeing that their child are clearly lagging behind?
Right. So I designed this checklist specifically for situations like that. It's the same major milestones that you see on any and every checklist out there on the internet or in your doctor's office. But what it does is it helps guide parents through all of those little tiny steps that the baby needs to take between one major milestone and another major milestone. So, for example, I get a lot of people saying, my baby's not sitting, my baby's not sitting. When are they going to start sitting? And first of all, I say, who cares when they start sitting? Do you know a human that can't sit? And what do we spend the majority of our time in our life doing? Sitting. Too much? Yes. Okay. I don't care when your baby sits, honestly. And sitting, again, is a static posture. So we talked about learning is movement and movement is learning. So if you're sitting, you're not engaging in your environment. And I have a lot of 9 and 10-month-old babies that come to me for therapy, and all they do is sit. And they've never rolled or crawled on their bellies or crawled on their hands and knees. They've never accessed any of the things in their world to learn about them. So what these checklists do is they help you go, okay, I'm so worried about sitting. I want to see all those little skills that need to happen before sitting. And you got to go all the way back to wherever you missed some of those little milestones. So they're organized by what position you're in. They're organized. One page is tummy time progression. So all the way from brand new curled up in a fetal position, all the way to pushing up onto your hands and knees. And then the next one is what the progression of laying on their back. Now, I don't follow that one. I don't care about that one too much because they are so much on their backs that it's actually kind of screwing up when babies are hitting milestones. But it shows you, if you're worried that your baby, I don't know, lets his head drag when you pull him up, that's a good observation, but you shouldn't be working on sitting. You got to go way back to what's going on before that. Oh, he's not rolling. He's not using his chin tuck and his abs to help him. So I'm hoping that it helps parents figure out where they need to be and what they need to focus on and see how those building blocks will build together to get wherever they want their baby to be. So we don't emphasize that much about what age. They have to be sitting at 6 months. They have to be crawling at 9 months. And they have to be walking at 1 year. No, not necessarily. But you got to look at the progression. And if they haven't started rolling or pivoting or scooting on their belly on the floor, I don't care about sitting. That's not the priority at that moment. They still have some learning time to do on the floor, basically.
Right.
So go ahead.
No, I just, as you are sharing that information, I'm just trying to think of my kids. And my oldest, again, I think it happens with the first baby because you're so excited.
Yeah.
You're so, I think as a first parent, you're so, what's the word that I'm looking for? You're anxious for them to do things quickly.
Yeah.
To pick up quickly or be like other kids, because you see other kids, sitting or walking or crawling. Yeah. And this problem I have, especially with my oldest. So I admit we have prompt her to sit too early.
Mm-hmm. Everybody does.
Yeah. But what I see now, and it's fascinating how this body is so brilliantly smart. Yeah. Every time she comes home, well, to begin with, I can tell you for sure that in school they don't move enough. And I know
Yes.
that
Yes.
she's
Big
very
problem.
kinesthetic. She needs to move. But every time she's at home, and especially during the winter, because the winter in Canada is so brutal, she's always on the floor, Wendy. And it's always like she's
Interesting.
rolling,
Yeah.
and even lately I started noticing that she wants to, like, I think her body craves to be upside down. So
Uh-huh.
she would like lean on the sofa and put her legs up,
Yep.
and I think it's sort of like her body is trying to make up for all this time that
Right.
she missed. Does it make sense, or am I making that up?
I I think that's a good observation. Again, we don't have enough to really say she is seeking all of that movement because she didn't get enough in her first year. That's a big stretch to say that's why she's doing it. All kids seek movement. All kids need to move. They love to move. They're experimenting. They're just little scientists in every aspect of their life. And so movement is definitely one of those things. They're trying to figure out how to coordinate their body and how to make it do
Right.
what they want it to do. So I would say that's quite typical to be seeking movement like that. I think it's very interesting that she likes to be on the floor. I think that's really cool. And that's a great observation on your part, how she's rolling around and wiggling around on the floor. I think when we don't get enough floor time as babies, we don't get that learning of our sensory system, of what it feels like for something to touch and be warm and be cold and be hot,
Mm.
or heavy or light, or what does this surface feel like? Is this tickly? Is this pokey? Is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable? That's what our sensory system is. One of the first things that develops before the visual system. That's
Mhm.
that's the other piece of tummy time, is we're not working on what we see, we're working on what we feel. So I
Mm.
like that she's going back to that and she's getting her
Mhm.
feels on. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting that she's the only one doing that. My middle daughter, who is 5.5, she doesn't do that. I guess
Yeah.
she has, I don't know, maybe she's
Now, is she really coordinated?
the older one, or
The 5-year-old.
yeah, she's pretty coordinated. Yeah,
Yeah.
my oldest one is not as coordinated. She used to
Yeah.
fall a lot, like stumble
Yeah.
and fall.
There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So your
All
older
right.
one's still trying to put her pieces together. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And like sometimes it annoys it annoys me a lot, because we can have like company at home and she's like rolling on the floor. I'm like,
All
what
over the place.
is she doing? Get up. But there is this place in me that says, just give her, and it will all resolve in time. Yeah, it's interesting to see how the body works. Okay, so we are focusing on tummy time today, but I have to ask you about sitting, and you mentioned it before also. And what I'm particularly curious about is the use of the sitting aids like bamboo, because I think all my girlfriends
Yeah.
have those and I don't. I don't know. It just something about them doesn't seem right to me. So I just want to know, what is your take on them, and if they're supportive of baby's development. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, again, it all goes back to tummy time. So it's normal for parents to get excited about when their baby can sit and walk, are, the two biggest ones. Some people get excited about the rolling and the crawling, which kudos to them, because those are way more important than sitting. But there is that urgency and that competition and that judgment and that mommy guilt and all that stuff that drives us to want to do more and give more and buy more so that our
Right.
baby can be more. And I get very angry at marketing toward moms and babies. People take advantage of your insecurities and they say, this is going to make your baby brilliant. This is going to make you the coolest mom on the block.
Right.
And it doesn't. And they put out this kind of fake research, like baby Einstein, for example. Well, it stimulates the baby's brain, therefore it's making them smarter. No, it's overstimulating the baby's brain, and they're actually totally, completely tuning out, and they can't learn from what they're supposed to be learning from because they can't get rid of all this other excess information that they're not ready for. So bumbos are kind of the same way. It's like, let's just skip over all the stuff and put them in an artificial device that's going to help them sit. Go back to the olden days when we didn't have bumbos. What did babies do? You didn't put them in sitting. They laid on the ground. They laid on the ground, or you carried them around in your arms, and they figured it out on their own because they're neurologically wired to get there. we're really big as therapists, we're really big on not sitting until they can get themselves into sitting. So I call bumbos and other sitting devices zero learning time. If you want to put your baby in a bumbo and she looks cute, great. It is not making her stronger. It is not helping her get to sitting faster, and it is taking away from what she needs to be doing and learning on her tummy and on the floor. So we're kind of stern about that. But if you put a baby in a sitting position and they can't hold themselves there and they didn't get there, they're not developmentally ready for that. And people will go even as far as to say, you're messing up their spine. Their spines are still this C-shaped slouchy curve and you're putting them up against gravity. All you're doing is giving them worse posture. Yeah. But when they're on their tummies and they're pushing up, they're strengthening their backs. When they're rolling from their backs to their bellies, they're strengthening their bellies. And after they get good strength and balance between their back and their bellies, then they sit. Does that make sense? So we're jumping the gun and buying stuff we don't need when really you need to put them on the floor and walk away. Right. They just don't need
as
much.
Parents, it's so difficult because they're so dependent on us. And I think it's sort of like a liberation when they finally can do things on their own.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Like I totally get that. My baby just recently started crawling, and it's like so liberating for me because I don't have to carry her from place to place, So I understand why parents would want to free their hands, right? Or put the baby somewhere. And I know that babies, they prefer to be upright. They don't like to be on the ground. They don't like to lie down. And that
created that though.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's not typical.
Right.
Yeah. We've created, it's just kind of like we've created all of our slouchy postures, and 80% of Americans have back pain, and it has everything to do with our lifestyles. And we've kind of created that in our babies too. Yes, they light up when they're upright because you're engaging with them. They're seeing people face to face, that, and they, you see babies in all these containers. We call them containers, the bumbo and the extra saucer and whatever. They're smiling, they're happy, but that doesn't mean that's developmentally appropriate. So I always use a comparison of, I bet your toddler loves to run out in traffic and play in the middle of the street. Does that mean it's good for him? He's happy, he's smiling. Is that good for him? No. So it doesn't, just because they seem like they enjoy it, that doesn't mean that's good for them and their development and their future. So we know that tummy time will help them become smarter and faster and stronger and more coordinated and all those things that we want our children to be. We know that bumbos, extra saucers, jumpers, walkers can actually interfere with how your child develops. And one of the biggest things, for example, is toe walking. Babies who are in those containers and they're being held up by the seat and they're able to lean back against the seat and not use their own muscles against gravity, they end up being more susceptible to be toe walkers, to have more difficulties with coordinating their bodies when they're trying to learn to walk. Again, there's lots of typical babies that were in bumbos and extra saucers and they're fine. There are those situations out there, but we see all the things that can go wrong and we want to prevent that. And you don't know if your baby's going to be the one that has problems and it has to be in therapy forever, or if your baby's the one that's just going to kick butt and do fine. You don't know that when you put them in the bumbo. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we just like to educate families and educate parents and say, this is what's natural, this is what's neurologically appropriate, and this is what you don't need. It's the marketing. It's the Fisher Price and the Babies R Us that are telling you, buy our product. They want money. They'll tell you they're gonna feed on your weaknesses and your insecurities and say your baby's gonna be smarter and stronger and faster if you buy this product. And it's all a bunch of baloney. They don't need those products. They really don't need much at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm a huge proponent of just not intervening, just letting them be. And just trusting the process, trusting our kids and their ability and the body, the wisdom of the body, that they will definitely know how to, sit, walk, all of those milestones. Yeah. In time. Yeah.
I compare it to nutrition and the whole Gerber series. Back in the olden days before Gerber, babies learned how to eat in a certain way, in a certain order, and eventually started taking food from parents and, less breast milk and more real foods. But we have this Gerber system. You start on stage 1 purees, and then you go to the puffs for the crawlers, and you go to the Cheetos for the walkers. And no, that's Gerber selling you food.
Right.
It's
brilliant marketing, though.
It's brilliant marketing. And we are busy modern families, and we need those conveniences, but it's sort of a bad feedback cycle, right? It's nice to have the time to spend with our babies, so we're going to take shortcuts on the food and take shortcuts on, let me put baby in the bumbo so I can go look at my Facebook or something. That's kind of how our world is living. So you have to be really conscious about stepping back and saying, do I really need this stuff? My favorite resource for anybody who has any interest in child development is it's a Disney documentary called Babies. Have you seen it?
Yes, with the 4 babies.
Oh my gosh,
I love that movie. So I love it.
Yeah, so it basically the documentarist he films 4 different babies from 4 different corners of the world. Yeah. In modern time. And he films them from birth to walking, basically. And the sequence of the documentary just bounces between all 4 of the babies while they go through each stage of development. Now, the big picture is they all go through the same steps of development. Okay, so American babies aren't faster. American babies aren't more coordinated. American babies don't skip crawling.
And they aren't smarter also.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, just stepping back and just not intervening on what's already naturally there. So I love it because, the African family, they're in the boondocks. There are no modern conveniences. They don't even wear diapers. And these kids are just looking at the other babies, and they're mimicking the other babies. And when they have cry, the mom meets their needs, and when they get strong enough, they start trying to push themselves up to sitting. And then the Mongolian kid, which is hilarious.
I know, that was crazy.
There's never a parent.
Yeah, she leaves him in the house by himself.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, right, when everybody else is crawling, he's out there crawling with the yaks. Were those yaks? He's out there crawling in a field all by himself. Yeah. Nobody put him in a bumbo. Nobody put him in front of a TV with baby Einstein. And his development is beautiful. They tied him up with a string and put him on the back of a motorcycle after he was born. Like, they didn't screw him up. He developed beautifully. So I love using that as a perspective. And what you might find if you're really paying attention is the Japanese and the Americans actually overstimulate their babies. The Japanese in that video were worse. They bring their babies to overstimulating environments and try to bombard them with learning and information to make them smart. And the little girl that's sitting with the building blocks and falls over, perfect example of why you don't need to sit too soon. That did her no good. Somebody put her there and walked away, and she couldn't even hold herself up. So she fell on the ground. What did she do? She wasn't independent. She had to cry until somebody came and picked her back up again. So we may think we're making them independent, but in that case, she was more reliant on a parent than any of those other babies that were getting in and out of sitting and getting in and out of crawling on their own. I think it's a really interesting.
I love that I love that you're bringing that up, because my next question, I wanted to ask you about your experience with regards to maternal instinct. Mm-hmm. And how often do you see mothers come to you with abnormal development needing your intervention? And how accurate are these moms with regards to their concerns?
That's really complicated question, because you also have to tease through accepting that there's something that's not right. So moms are hormonally, instinctually driven to look out in the future and prevent problems. And if they see anything that gets their hairs up or grabs their mommy instincts and makes them feel uncomfortable or gives them a knot in the stomach or whatever, they're going to be very hyper alert of it. And if it doesn't go away on its own, then they're going to be like, why isn't anybody helping me? And so I find these parents that have good mommy gut instincts go to the doctors, and the doctors say, they're fine. You're a first time mom. Oh, they'll grow out of it. Mm-hmm. And when they come to me, by the time they're referred to me, they've talked to the doctor several times and said, this isn't going away. I want help. Who can help me? They come to me and they say, I wish I knew this sooner. I wish I saw you sooner. I have a girl that I didn't get till 9 months. She didn't put any weight on her legs whatsoever. And mom's like, I think there's something really, really wrong with her. And I was like, I were too. But it turns out she just had low muscle tone and she just wasn't picking up on her skills. And she got to the point where her muscle tone did not coordinate with the next skill, milestone that she needed to hit. And so she just got stuck. And so the mommy instincts are great when you know that something's not right and you want help. Keep asking for help. Don't let a doctor tell you it's normal, they'll grow out of it. I hate that. What's the worst thing that happened? If you send them to a PT and a PT says, yeah, I know you're concerned, but you know what? They're doing this, this, and this. They're not crawling yet, but they're spinning around on their belly and they're pushing up on their hands and knees and they're crossing midline. They're switching their arm from one side to the other. They're doing all these great fundamental movements that will get them to crawling. They're just not there right now. Go home, you're fine. Or they come to me and, the parent is concerned and I say, we've got some really tight muscles. We've got some reflux. What? They have reflux? Yeah. Your kid lives like, in that arch position with the head turned back all the time. That's reflux. That's keeping them from wanting to be on their tummies. And they don't want to be on their tummies and they don't want to be on their backs. So they're not going to learn to roll. They're not going to learn to get around on the floor. And so, being able to advocate for your child and get the help and get the answers is where the benefit comes. What gets in the way of mommy instincts though is denial. And I totally get it and I totally understand. We think our babies are just going to grow and develop beautifully without us doing anything. And if something is going awry, we notice it and we put it in the back of our heads, but we're like, no, my baby's fine. No, every baby develops differently. I hear that one so much and it's true, but it's not true. No, they're just going to get there on their own time. Well, I need to tell you that their muscles are so tight that they're not twisting their body at all. And they're not moving their arms opposite of each other at all. So they're not going to pick up on those next milestones. And it's hard sometimes to be the one to say, no, it's not good. It's not right. We need to fix it, because you can get two responses. You can get, you're focusing on the negative and my baby's fine. And, you're just mean and they don't come back. Or I get a parent that cries, says, I screwed up. It's all my fault. And what can I do to make it better? And that parent, first I have to say, you did nothing wrong. You just didn't know what you didn't know. So nobody's to blame, other than maybe your doctor, because they didn't send them to me soon enough. But whatever, pediatricians are busy. They've got their own thing going on. But my point is, like, if you can get through the denial and you can be in a place where you can accept that your baby needs help, you're going to be where you want to be sooner and better, with more information and more confidence and more optimism. But if you sit there and say, oh my gosh, my baby's not doing what everybody else's babies are doing. Oh, they're fine. They're fine. There's nothing wrong. They're fine. They're going to be fine. You're actually getting in the way of getting them where you want them to be. So It takes a lot of processing mentally. And I want to help people with that. I want to help people sort through that, because I get it. I get all of it. I understand it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's so much to learn and so many things that, we wish didn't happen, or, it's sometimes we might feel like it's easier to just close our eyes and ignore. But that's when I think the feminine wisdom and the mother wisdom comes in and really needs to sort of help us and guide our ways. Yeah. So there's so much to say. All right. So my next question for you is I have like a set of four questions that I ask all my guests. And this show is all about inspiring moms to thrive as women and mothers. And I like calling it being a goddess. So I wanted to ask you, how are you being a goddess in your own life? Yes.
Stop for a second. I lost you. Will you start with that question again?
Oh, okay. Again.
Yeah.
So this show is all about inspiring mothers to thrive as women and mothers. Okay. And I like to call it being a goddess.
Okay.
And I'm curious to know, how are you being a goddess in your own life? How do you take care of yourself, of your soul, your body? What are some of your non-negotiables?
We're getting personal here.
Yeah.
I've had pretty significant clinical depression most of my life. And over the years of trying to live with it and stop fighting it, I've learned that I am not a super person. I wanted to be a world-renowned pediatrician and have 3 beautiful children at home, that I was the coach of their soccer team and I was the PTA leader or whatever, and I wanted to be able to save all these babies, right? And I learned, that's why I didn't go to medical school. I learned kind of before I decided to on my career, it was like, I am not this person. I don't know that anybody is. I think a lot of people can make it look that way on the surface, but they're sacrificing in other places. So I've learned that I need to pay attention to myself, pay attention to how I feel, my energy, how many headaches I'm getting, how many stomach aches I'm getting. I need to listen to myself and really focus on having balance in life. And I will make lots of decisions that other people would be scared to make in life in order to maintain that balance. I will quit a job. I will move to another city. I will, take a big pay cut. I will do what it takes to feel like I'm balanced, because I do not survive if I'm off balance. It's just nothing but depression, and getting out of bed is harder than anything else you can imagine. And I don't want that every day of my life. I want to feel good and balanced. So I do a lot of self-care mostly in resting. I don't overcommit myself. I don't push through certain feelings. I don't fight myself when I'm feeling sad. When I'm tired, I sleep. I have to honor all of those things in my body and my brain and my soul, like you said, to make sure that I can not just like survive difficult times, but like live in a peaceful way long term.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. So what advice does your now mommy self would have given to your pre-mommy self?
I think what I could have done better. I thought I was doing a pretty good job at it, but I could have done better. I think asking for help. I mean, everybody says this, but I would have accepted help if somebody offered, but nobody was offering, because nobody wants to like be in your business. Nobody wants to bother you. People want to help, but nobody knows how. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, not a lot of people have the skills of saying, hey, you just had a baby. You're exhausted. Your baby is screaming 24 hours a day. Let me vacuum your floor. Go take a bath. I've got this. And what a difference that can make. Just knowing that somebody gets what you're experiencing. And childbirth is common. Raising babies is common. Moms are everywhere, right? Everybody thinks everybody just blew through this like it was no big deal and you're the only one struggling. No. We just are women, and we put on our strong face and we trudge through it at any expense. And then you get, the sad part is the moms that have their 12-year-olds and there's 18-year-olds and they don't have an identity. They're like, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I want to do for fun. I don't have friends that I can have conversations with that have nothing to do with children. And you don't even know who you are. And that's a horrible place to be in your 30s and 40s.
Yeah. And this podcast is all about helping moms get out of this. Yes. Yeah, because it's a sucky place to be. I know, I've been there, and I don't want anybody, any woman, and especially any mother, to be in that place, because we need to take care of ourselves, and we are, our kids depend on us. We need to take care of our bodies. We need to take care of our brains, of our minds, and our souls as well. It's so important. Yeah. So important. Okay. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I also like to keep it real and show listeners that even though someone is an expert in one area, they might be struggling with other things. So what are some of your current challenges as a woman or wife or mother?
You're going to laugh, but nutrition, healthy eating, healthy cooking, healthy habits. That's the one thing that I let go. And one of my issues with depression is that I'm very hard on myself, and I expect more of myself than I expect of anybody else. And I've just always let that go. I've always said, I've got to have something where I say, it's okay. You're fine. You can have whatever it is that you feel like eating. And I used to be skinny and I used to get away with it. You know, I've gained a lot more mommy weight, you know, woman weight. And so I have to be a lot more cautious about how much I'm doing this and how much I let myself go. But yeah, I don't cook. I need to cook healthy meals. I need to have healthy meals available. I just don't crave healthy food. I make lots of efforts, but I've never found a really good system to stick to. And that's just like anybody, like exercise routine. Oh, you know, I keep going out to the gym, but you know, I can't stick to it. It's being human. But that's probably my biggest weakness for sure. Definitely.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stick around. You'll get lots of lots of advice here.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of your pet peeves?
As far as parents?
Anything.
We'll stick to like the people I'm trying to help. I have a few pet peeves. One of them is carrying babies around in the carrier. It is very convenient that the carrier snaps out of the car seat, but it's not supposed to carry the baby and hold the baby all day long. That's zero learning time. That's no tummy time. That's no moving time. That's babysitting. So get your baby out of the car seat as much as you can, please. I know it's inconvenient. You got to unclick them and you got to hold them and then you got to run after your toddler. You know, that's why they have carriers and slings. Tie them to your body. I know it's not straightforward and easy peasy like I'm making it sound, but you're interfering with your baby's development if you're carrying them around in their carriers. So sometimes we like ban them from our waiting room. Like, you don't bring your baby in a carrier unless they're asleep. I let them stay asleep, but it's like, no, they got to get out. It's okay for them to be on the floor. It's okay for them to be moving around. So that's a big one. Another one would be probably when parents prop a bottle. There's so many things wrong with propping a bottle. They can aspirate on the liquids because it's pouring into their mouth whether they want it to or not. And it's very easy for them to get the milk down into their lungs and cause pneumonia and cause some really serious problems. The other issue is a lot of times we are providing props and prompts that aren't natural. And so everybody's like, well, my baby holds their bottle really early because you propped it and they just put their hands on it. That's not holding a bottle. That's them bringing their hands to something wonderful right in front of their face. But again, it's interfering with normal development. And there is no developed milestone for holding a bottle. Bottles didn't exist back in the day, and there's no milestone for holding a bottle. So again, you don't need to give them that prop and try to, my baby holds my bottle. Along those lines is letting a baby hold a bottle while they're laying on their back. That is a huge risk of ear infections, aspiration, congestion in their throats. Please don't leave them laying on their backs. The fluid doesn't go down into their stomach. It just drains into the back of their head, and then we've got all sorts of problems. So those are probably my big ones. Get them out of the containers and don't do things that are going to make them sicker. You know.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Yeah. Okay. So before I let you go, can you talk a little bit about that freebie? We mentioned it in the interview. It's called the Gross Motor Milestones Checklist, and it's available on my website. It's you can get it at healthbeginswithmom.com, and it's called Why is Tummy Time So Important for Baby? That's a blog post, and you scroll down and you can download that. So can you just mention a little bit briefly about that download?
In a nutshell, I think it's a parent helper. It's a parent helper from birth to walking. And when you graduate through those milestone checklists and you go through and you get to check off all of the items and the skills, you can be really confident that your kid is on track and ready to grow and learn and have good speech and good learning and good fine motor skills and be able to do sports and be able to be on the chess team and all of those things because you made sure that your baby went through all of those stages. And I think, that's a great reason. And then the other reason that I want moms to have this, parents to have this by their side is so you don't have to worry as much. I don't want you worrying all the time. I want you to have information where you can say, wait a minute, I'm going to pull out those checklists and see where baby is. And if you're actually checking off on the checklist, you'll see how things evolve and it'll make you go, oh, I get it. I see what's going on here. And there's a lot less overwhelm and worry and and concern about what's going to happen in the future. I say knowledge is power, but knowledge is more powerful than fear. So if you are scared or worried, get information. And that's what I think these checklists provide.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So can you also talk about your Facebook group and how it can help parents?
Yes. So I am on, well, so like I said, I took this passion for helping parents out of the clinic and onto the internet. And I do need it to work as a business so I could keep food on my table and get healthy food from the grocery store. So I set up a way to offer services over the internet. And the hope was that parents can access my information and feel empowered and feel educated through spending time with me, either doing videos or assessing videos or just talking about whatever the heck is bothering you. And I want to be able to do that while you are in the comfort of your own living room. And you don't have to worry and ask your neighbors and friends and then go to the doctor and be told nothing's wrong and then go back to the doctor and then wait and or beg for a referral to a therapist. You can just come to me. My calls are always free. The first call is always free. So you can just come to me, call me, ask me a question, and I'll give you what information you need. And then we go from there. You tell me what you need. I tell you how I can help you. And you may only need 30 minutes to just get yourself back on track. So along those lines, I started becoming more active on my Facebook, which I never was before, but I found almost 300 now parents of preemies that are desperately seeking knowledge. And I love that about them. They know that things aren't going right. They know that, man, they barely survived the NICU, by the skin of their brow. What is that analogy? I don't know. But they barely survived. Babies barely survived. Parents barely survived. But unfortunately, there's so many more obstacles to come. And I feel like helping them learn and empowering them to have the information and empowering them to advocate for their children and not be so lost and worried and overwhelmed. It has been phenomenal. I've gotten so much amazing feedback from these parents. And so that's what I want to do for everybody. Obviously, preemie parents are in a unique situation where all the parenting issues are a bit magnified, if not more concerns with health issues and who knows, feeding's a big deal. But I want all parents to feel like they can access this information and be active and confident in how their baby is developing and not judging and worrying and mommy guilting and freaking out and then getting dismissed by people when you express your concerns.
Yeah, I love that.
You won't get that from me. You won't get that in my group. Your concerns are valid and they're legitimate. And if they aren't something you need to worry about, I'm going to tell you. You don't need to worry about it, and this is why. So just let that go. What else is bothering you?
That's great. So how is that Facebook group called?
It's called Preemie Power. It's my Facebook page is everythingbabies.org, which is the same thing as my website. And on the page, you can link to that Preemie Power group. It's a closed group, so you have to be invited or asked to join.
Okay.
But it's free and everybody can access it.
That's great. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Wendy, for all the wonderful information. I feel like I've learned so much today.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.